Have you ever heard the story called Oedipus Rex? It's an ancient Greek tale about a man who unknowingly fulfills a prophecy he attempts to avoid, and it's a rather interesting story that deals with themes of fate and free will, but looking back on it, I couldn't help but wonder, was Oedipus wrong? Or his actions in the story truly immoral? For those of you who aren't familiar with the story, I'll provide a quick synopsis. After saving the city of Thebes from a sphinx, Oedipus married the widowed queen of the city, Jocasta, and in turn becomes the new king. However, the city is struck by a plague due to the previous king having been murdered, and the murderer never being discovered. Thus, Oedipus sets about to find the murderer. He then goes to speak with Theseus, a blind prophet residing within the city, for assistance. Theseus is at first hesitant, but eventually declares that Oedipus himself killed the old king, and that should he choose to investigate further, he would blind himself as penance for his crimes. Oedipus at first dismisses the old man's claim. He never even met the king of Thebes, and the only people he ever killed were a band of travelers as he made his way to the city, but this was ancient Greece, so he was justified because they insulted him or something. Still, he can't help but question if Theseus may have been speaking the truth. At this point, Jocasta comes to ease Oedipus' mind, and persuades him that the words of prophets and oracles cannot always be trusted. She does so by telling Oedipus about a prophecy that she received many years ago. You see, Jocasta and the old king of Thebes had given birth to a son, and went to speak with an oracle to know of the baby's future. When the oracle informed them that the child was destined to murder the king and then marry the queen, they decided to prevent the prophecy from occurring by killing the child. Thus, they left the infant to die of exposure on the crossroads of the city, and the prophecy was averted. At this point, Oedipus is able to calm his mind, even more so after a messenger comes to inform him of his father's death in the city of Corinth. Now, this might seem a bit morbid, but it turns out that Oedipus was trying to prevent his own prophecy. You see, Oedipus learned from an oracle that he was destined to murder his father and marry his mother, so he took it upon himself to put as much distance between him and his parents as was physically possible, which is why he went to Thebes. And at this point, I think you can tell where this story is going. As we learn from the messenger, it turns out that Oedipus was adopted, and that his parents took him into their home when a shepherd found a baby abandoned at the crossroads to Thebes. We also learn that the band of travelers that Oedipus came across was actually the king of Thebes and his entourage, meaning that Oedipus did in fact kill the king of Thebes, his father, and in becoming the new king of Thebes had married the queen, his mother. It's at this point when Oedipus gouged his eyes out in a symbolic gesture related to seeing the truth or something of the sort, and exiled himself from the city in penance for his actions. But can it honestly be said that Oedipus is guilty of these crimes? Can he be held responsible for his actions? Now, a person's immediate response might be something along the lines of, yes, of course he's responsible. He willingly committed an act of murder and also engaged in incest, but while I won't argue against the notion that what Oedipus did was wrong, is it right to say that Oedipus is wrong for what he did? That might be a bit confusing, so allow me to clarify. Actus reus non facit reum nisit mens sit rea. Or for those of you who don't speak Latin, or for those of you who do, and probably did not understand the butchering of the pronunciation that I just presented, the act is not culpable unless the mind is guilty. In other words, a person cannot be held responsible for their actions unless it can be proven that their actions were either intentional, that the actions and potential consequences of said actions could have been prevented and or controlled, or if the individual in question is unable to provide a reasonable excuse or justification for their actions. And with all the information available from this story, it's rather difficult to claim that Oedipus was responsible for everything which occurred. For while it's true that he did kill several people, among other things, Oedipus never really had a choice in the matter. There was nothing which he could have done differently to prevent these events from occurring, because in the world in which Oedipus inhabits, there is no free will. Not really. He was part of a prophecy which predestined everything that occurred in the story. And while to us prophecies may be baseless and have no real influence in reality, to the ancient Greeks, they were messages given to oracles by the Olympians, who were very real in the confines of this story. What could have possibly been done to avoid this prophecy from coming to fruition when the gods themselves have declared that it's going to happen? How do you fight against divine intervention? With that in mind, can you honestly claim that Oedipus did anything wrong? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm curious to know if you think this prophecy could have been prevented, and if so, please inform me how. I'm curious to know what you think.